About 30 people in the waiting room. Should I admit them?
I would think so.
Just to make sure they all take on the call.
Much more.
It's okay.
Agora aonde se desenvolve, eu tenho caras de banho no grupo de científico, vou contar o livro da na o para despejo.
We'll take this whole thing.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, it's only Council Manga.
Well, then.
yes.
Okay. About 5 minutes. Well, one time, 5 minutes. Joining us online. It is my immense pleasure to welcome you to the Parliament this evening and to our cross-party group. I am Alexander Stewart and I am one of the co-conveners of this group. I chaired it in the past Parliament and I'm still doing it in this. So it has been a great journey to see all of the development that are taking place and have taken place, but also all of the challenges that you face and we are continuing to face. And tonight we will discuss some of those issues. So it is, as I say, a great pleasure for us to have Peter West, our honorary consul here. There are a number of peers and MPs who are online with us, as well as some other colleagues and friends, but you're all most welcome. And tonight is an opportunity for us to discuss, as I say, some of the burning issues that are currently taking place in Malawi. And also we're joined by the all-party parliamentary group from Westminster. And I'd like to acknowledge and welcome Patrick Grady MP, who is here with us, who is the chair of that group at Westminster. Patrick, you are most welcome and your colleagues are most welcome to join us here this evening. I do apologise for the lateness, but the Parliament was still going and is still running at this moment, so time is not on our side as usual. But that sometimes happens to you as well in Westminster, and we're aware of that. So all of you, most welcome. The event is being recorded and will put online, so if you are happy with the proceedings, etc., and I would ask anyone who is online and once they have their chance to speak, ensure that your microphone is on, and when you're not, that your microphone is muted, so we don't get any of the back chat that sometimes comes when we're trying to go away. Sometimes it's easier to have a meeting with Malawi than it is to have it in this building, because you get sometimes a better connection. So we look forward to hearing from all the people who come online and are going to deal with it. The main issue for this evening, as I've said, is for us to catch up and have a discussion on where we are. And I'd like to initially indicate for those of those who have not been able to join us this evening, and there are a number of people who've not been able to join for various reasons. Apologies have been received from Dr. Alistair Allen, MSP, Matt Russell, MSP, Professor Heather Kuby, Lord McConnell, Judy Brock MP, Alan Dawes MP, and Manny Fellows MP. And we had hoped to have with us this evening the Speaker of the Malawian Parliament, who is in Scotland, with a number of representatives from the Parliament and also some of the officials who are accompanying them. And they have a busy schedule, so they're not able to be here this evening, but it is my understanding that they are coming to Parliament tomorrow, and I believe there's a lunch being organised for them with the presiding officer. And as I say, that's a great honour for them to be here, and we look forward to hosting and supporting them tomorrow when they are actually here with us. Tonight's meeting really, as you know, is to discuss where we are with the tropical cyclone Freddy, and also we're going to touch on women and girls in Malawi. Two very, very topical subjects. And as I say, the disaster that has affected Malawi with reference to the cyclone and the loss of life and the injury, and nearly every sector within the community has been affected in a significant way. And that in itself is a real challenge for the government and the authorities to manage when they're looking at the distribution of shelter, the agriculture and food security that's taken place, transport, education, health, water, sanitation. They have all been affected. And that in itself brings huge challenges to the government and to Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs. And we are delighted in some ways to have an up-to-date from some of those individuals who are joining us this evening from Malawi to try and give us a flavour of what is actually taking place and what they are trying to achieve in their roles. And we should have three individuals joining us to discuss the way and the work and the relief that's taking place. And you are most welcome. We should have the Deputy Director for Response, who is Parliament, and I'll get the name wrong, I'm sure, Fango, and then there is Benison Chapu, who is the Deputy Director of Preparedness, and then we also have the Chief Disaster Response Officer, Malawi. So you are all welcome this evening, and we very much look forward to hearing from you an insight into how you are coping and what you're coping with at the moment in Malawi. So if I can maybe hand over to you to give us an introduction and an update.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson and all the honorable members present on this call. As indicated by the chair, we are a delegation from Malawi. So I'm Fiauk Mafongo, Deputy Director for Disaster Response. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Fedson Chiguse, the Deputy Director for Disaster Preparedness, and Mr. Madari Somale, the Chief Disaster Response Officer. So we are sitting in for the Commissioner for Disaster Management Affairs, who would have loved to join this meeting, but due to some other equally important urgent issues, hasn't managed to do so. So, Chair, I just want if maybe you can confirm any confirmation whether the slides, you are able to see the slides?
They are appearing. We've got them on the screen. So.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
The one
thanks so much, Chairperson. Yes. So as I think as at now, we're all aware about the situation here in terms of the affected population, as well as some of the happenings that we experienced. So basically, we did an interagency assessment, and from the assessment, there are quite huge impacts that were recorded in terms of both displacement, as well as the damage to household property, infrastructure, and the other relevant sectors. So in summary, the tropical cyclone Freddy affected almost the whole of the southern region, and it resulted in a total of 2.6 million people being affected, out of which we had the 143,487 households being displaced. In terms of mortality, we recorded 679 deaths. We still have people technically recorded as missing, amounting to 537. And we also registered people with injuries recorded at 2,178. And this, due to the huge displacement, we had the 747 camps, which were established to offer temporary shelter for the displaced population. So as I've indicated, the cyclone touched on a number of almost all the sectors. Infrastructure, like for logistics, most of the roads, bridges were affected. In terms of health, we had health facilities also being affected. In terms of education, most of the people were initially seeking refuge in schools, classrooms, which also led to disruption of the delivery of teaching and the learning activities in these school facilities. In terms of food security, most of the food stocks which were being kept by most of these households were also destroyed in the course of the cyclone. And we also lost a lot of crop hectarage in the field due to the crop washaways, as well as the mudslides and landslides which were experienced. So following the impact, we did a response plan, which we shared in the previous meeting of the Scotland Malawi Association coordination meeting. The total requirements for this response plan were pegged at 147.8 billion Malawi kwacha, which is roughly 147 million US dollars. It's a 3-month response plan from April up to June 2023. And as of yesterday, well, we should say we have mobilized a total of 111.94 billion Malawi kwacha, which could be equivalent to about 111 million US dollars. And this has been mobilized from various partners, from government, in kind, but also financial. But also we have had a lot of support from partners, either in cash, but also in kind, as well as the foreign governments, organizations, the private sector, as well as individuals of goodwill. So this is leaving us with a gap of 35.94 billion Malawi kwacha. In terms of the food security cluster, there are some clusters which we can say do not really have a gap. For example, the food security cluster, whereby government has committed in terms of the cereal. So we have maize from the strategic grain reserves, and we've also had partners coming in. For example, the World Bank has committed to reprogram some funds through the social cash transfer program, which we are going also to use to reach out to the affected population through cash transfer so that they can meet their food needs. But we also have other partners and development partners that have, through the WFP and also UNICEF, also committed to support through the food security cluster. So this cluster, we don't really have a gap, but suffice to indicate that we still have gaps in terms of the other sectors. The agriculture cluster, there are requirements there for us to kickstart area recovery through distribution of farm inputs, which the affected population can use for winter cropping using the residual moisture in these affected areas, but also irrigation later on. The other cluster, very crucial, is shelter. They still have some requirements, as well as the health, nutrition, transport, logistics, and education. So currently, as much as we are distributing relief, well, we should say relief assistance comprising food as well as non-food items, we are also in the process of facilitating the transition to area recovery. Especially noting that most of the flood conditions have improved. So most of the flooded waters have subsided. The areas are a bit dry, so we want to facilitate the return of the affected communities. So there are 3 approaches that we are looking into, which we are using. First is the return, if we deem it safe for the people to return to their original areas. Second one is integration, where the displaced communities are integrating within the host communities where we had the camps. Then the third option is the resettlement, where we have started engaging the councils and the traditional leaders for identification of suitable land for resettlement of those that can no longer return because it's unsafe to return to those original areas, but also they can't integrate in the host communities. We were also doing this in order to free up the classrooms, which were mostly hosting the displaced, hence affecting the education service delivery. So as of now, we had over 747 camps initially, but for this week, we have managed to decommission most of them, and we are only remaining with 147 active camps. And the decommissioning exercise is still ongoing. So we expect maybe in the next 2 weeks, maybe we can manage to decommission all the camps and only remain with those which we have to really identify land for long-term resettlement. So this is just giving us the number of camps per per location or per council. And then these are some of the ongoing activities which I've already touched on, including the ongoing provision of relief assistance, the provision of these return home packages, which are facilitating the return for the affected the displaced people, but also the issue of identifying land for relocation. Then we also have some areas where they're still cut off, and we are doing some temporary repair works to the roads so that we can open up humanitarian access to these areas. Now, considering the need for medium to long-term recovery due to the impacts that we have experienced, we commissioned and facilitated the post-disaster needs assessment in collaboration with partners, the World Bank, the EU, UNDP, and all the in-country partners. So we have finalized that assessment, which really looked into the disaster effects, looking at the damages. These are physical damages in terms of maybe the actual roads, bridges, and quantifying those ones. But also, we also looked at losses. This could be the increased costs of maybe doing business, or the losses due to lost production due to the impact of the cyclone. So quantifying all these disaster effects, but also it also focused on determining the disaster recovery requirements. So we had three major sectors which the assessment focused on: the productive sector, the social sector, as well as the infrastructure sector, and then we also had the cross-cutting issues. Suffice to indicate that as Malawi, the frequency of these cyclones, but also means that major disasters has become more frequent. So what we are bringing there is a comparison of the disaster total effects for the 2015 floods, but also we also had the 2019, the cyclone Idai, as well as the current, the recent tropical cyclone Freddy. So as you will see from that slide, in terms of impact, we've suffered huge impacts, disaster effects from tropical cyclone Freddy. And if you look at the recovery requirements, we also have huge recovery requirements from the tropical cyclone Freddy. So in summary, the total damage and losses were estimated at $506.7 million US dollars, and the total economic impact was valued at $36.4 million US dollars, which is presenting 0.5% of the gross domestic product and the production losses. And then in terms of total recovery and reconstruction needs, these have been estimated at $680.4 million US dollars. You will see that we had the two cyclones last season. These are Tropical Storm Anna as well as Tropical Storm Gombe. In terms of the reconstruction, we had not yet recovered from these two episodes, and then we were hit again this season. So it's more like a cumulative recovery requirements that we are looking at. And in order to mobilize resources for a proper recovery, as well as to properly coordinate the recovery process, we are in the process of developing a disaster recovery framework. So having done or concluded the PDNA, we have come up with a roadmap for producing that recovery framework. So from next week, we are embarking on the actual production of that recovery framework, which should assist us to prioritize the sectors, but also the recovery interventions in those prioritized sectors. So in brief, this is where we are, but just to take this opportunity to also thank all the well-wishers, the Scottish government, as well as all the foreign governments, organizations, as well as individuals of goodwill that have really rendered assistance to the government of Malawi and the people of Malawi during this tragic crisis. as indicated, we are still in the process of recovering. So we are also appealing for support towards the medium to long-term recovery requirements as highlighted by the post-disaster needs assessment. So, Honorable Chair, with these few slides, let me stop there and maybe allow honorable members for any comments or questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed for that very comprehensive analysis of where you are and the difficulties that you're facing and the recovery plan that you've put together, because that certainly does give us heart that you are managing the crisis in some way, but you still have much to do and many resources still to manage. We've got a comment from our chair, Patrick, Lady MP within Westminster, who's asked about how the rebuilding, and he's saying be assured that there will be support, and I have no doubt that the support will come from the Scottish Government and the United Kingdom Government to support how things go forward. But he's asking how far people have been displaced within the country. Have people been moved to camps, gone to the closer camps within their own region, or have people travelled further across the country, perhaps to regions not directly hit by the cyclone? So if you could try and maybe give us an answer to that, that would be useful.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. So the people, most of them have returned to their original communities where it was deemed safe for them to return. So most of these camps were set in almost close proximity to these affected areas. They didn't move like from one district long distances to another district or even another region. So they are mostly confined to the same traditional areas where they originally originated from or had settled in. Then secondly, for those that are integrating, they're also integrating within the host communities, which are not very far from their original areas. So they are almost within the same localities that they used to be. They've only maybe moved in terms of now the actual construction, maybe to construct at maybe another place which is a bit safe. Then we have the last category, which these are the ones which are totally moving to a separate area. Most of them not very far, but for some, we have to engage traditional leaders in the other areas. So these will move maybe quite a bit because we really need to look at new areas altogether. But one thing that we have also learned from the previous relocation exercise is that we don't really want to move them very far because most of them would still want to retain the original area, maybe for cultivation, agriculture purposes. But in terms of settlement, they can settle in the upland and safer area while they maintain this other one for agriculture purposes. So that's why most of the movement isn't covering a lot of distances. I think I've covered that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions from the members we have in the room? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, do you feel that there's going to be a problem with food security in Malawi this year? Like, do you think you're going to be able to produce enough food to feed yourself? And a follow-on question to that is, would you look at price regulation in the food sector?
Did you hear that?
Towards the end, we couldn't get it properly. Well, the actual, it's about food security requirements being huge, but we couldn't get the other element.
Okay, let me repeat that, if that's okay. So do you think that Malawi will be able to feed itself this year, given the impact of this terrible cyclone? And also, are there any considerations for regulating food prices?
Thanks so much. Yeah, quite true. The food security situation has been really compounded by the Friday. You will recall that we were already assisting people under the lean season. So the peak of the lean season, food insecurity in Malawi is maybe months like December, January, February, and we're supposed to conclude in March, and that's when the cyclone hit. And already we had people that we were already assisting in terms of food security. So Friday has really compounded the issue of food insecurity. So government has come in, of course, is regulating the maize. Maize is the staple here. So government has pegged the minimum prices for the maize crop. But also we lose a lot of food through informal trading. The borders are porous, we have neighboring countries around. So this is the time when most of these subsistence farmers would end up trading informally across the border. So there's that aspect of also trying to reinforce the issue of cross-border informal, that is the informal cross-border trade, especially for this main staple. Yeah, and the government is also trying to boost the role of ADMAC. ADMAC is a state-owned corporation, a grain trader, government-owned, which serves two purposes, basically. One is commercial, like during this time, it's the one that has been provided some funds so that it buys off the maize from the farmers, keeps, and then later on use the same maize to reach out to the markets in the country. But at the same time, ADMAC, the government organization, who also serves the purpose of stabilizing, market stabilization, price stabilization. So we hope that with ADMAC buying enough or adequate stocks, it will be able to also flush out those stocks on the markets and try to stabilize the prices from worsening. So those are some of the initiatives that are taking place, but we really take cognizance of the fact that the maize, especially prices around food commodities, ought to be really sort of regulated, and maybe initiatives taken so that we don't lose out a lot through the informal cross-border trade.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
There's another, I'm just going to read out another one to you that we've got from Alistair online, where there are concerns about accountability and transparency in relation to funds sought by the government of Malawi. The National Records and Archive Service of Malawi has produced proposals for addressing these concerns. Records Management Improvement Programme for Good Governance. Similar measures in Botswana, Ghana, and Tanzania have produced good results. Are parliamentarians and other participants interested in supporting this initiative? I think that is a very valid question that Alistair has raised there. And I would certainly say that the parliamentarians here are very keen to engage with all of that. And I do think that what we already heard this evening about what you're trying to achieve and what you are managing to achieve is a challenge for you. But the support that you've received to date will help. But more support is needed. That's very evident that you have not managed to attain all the funding that you require. There is still a shortfall, and that needs to be tapped into to try and move that forward. Now, I am conscious of time because we're now moving on to 1856, and there's a number of other speakers we need to get through. So can I thank you for your participation this evening, gentlemen. It has been really an eye-opener as to what is happening, and we send you our best wishes for all that you're endeavouring to try and achieve on behalf of your fellow Malawians, and the support that you will receive, as you know, from the Scottish Government and also the United Kingdom. It is very much there, and we look forward to seeing progress as things go forward. But thank you for your time and your energy this evening and answering the questions in the presentation we received.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair and all the honourable members. Thank you.
Pleasure. We'll now move on to our next contribution, and we're delighted to have Dr. Blessing Kyle with us this evening. Blessing has already been out at Blantyre, and she's now returned to us here and back in Scotland, and has been involved in both the response of the Malawi district in Scotland and also what's taking place to SAPA and others. And I invite Blessings, Dr. Kyle, to have a contribution now. If you use the button, the light will come on, you'll get a microphone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Blessings Kachare. I'm Malawian, but I work with the SKIA as an international programs officer. I also have colleagues here attending online who I will refer some of the patients you may have for us as SKIA. So I have two hats today. Where a head of the SKIA member of staff as well as a member of the diaspora community. So yes, I was in Malawi when the cyclone hit. I went to Malawi for work because I oversee programs in Malawi. So I was there, and after I did that, the work I went there for, I had a holiday because I'm Malawian, so I wanted to see family. And I was in Blantyre from the 10th of March. And what I saw in Blantyre on this particular day, I organized my nieces, nephews, my grandchildren, just to bond with them. So I took them out to a meal at Crossroads. So we had a meal, and the Crossroads has the fun stuff outside of the hotel, and the kids wanted to ride on those fun rides, kids being kids. So we went out and they were riding. So what I saw that particular day was a cloud that I've not seen before. It was thick, it was heavy, it was like it's telling me that go home. So there were some customers at Crossroads, so I asked them, can you see that? And they said indeed, and it will be raining heavily, so you better organize the kids to go home. So I asked the kids, let's go home. Kids being kids, they still wanted to play. So I had to ask them sternly that it's going to be rain and it will be really bad. We have to go. I was driving a saloon car. So we did manage to get into the car. Once we got on the car, the rain started. So from where I was to home, it was about maybe I would say 3 miles. But I can tell you that it took us longer to get home because the rain was thick. It was heavy, and the wipers could not contain the rain. The downpour was just something I have not seen. We stopped a few times because I could not see, the visibility was poor because the wipers were overtaken by the rain. But we managed to get home. And once we got home, the rain continued, and it continued throughout the night till morning and during the day. So that was the time I was winding up my stay in Malawi to come back to Scotland where I work. So I was asking myself, because my flight, I was meant to take it from Lilongwe. And news got me that the flights from Blantyre to Lilongwe have been canceled. So it meant I had to use the road, because even the buses, some of them had canceled their operations. So I asked around for someone who could take me to Lilongwe. And indeed, I found someone. So we drove to Lilongwe. From Blantyre, we drove in the rain until around Zalewa. For some of you who know Zalewa, it was still raining, but thick rain. But from Zalewa to Nchewu, it had stopped. But when we got to the district that border with Mozambique, the rain was intense. It was heavy rain. It was thick. The visibility was poor again. We tried to drive. We still forced our way to drive. sometimes stopping to just make sure that we catch our breath. We were not speaking in the car because we didn't know whether we made the right decision or not. So we still drove. We met so many cars that maybe had bumped into pavements, trees, but we didn't stop because even if we had stopped, we couldn't go out. The rain was just coming and it was thick. Thankfully, we got to Lilongwe, and when we got to Lilongwe, it was raining, but not as intense as it was in Blantyre and in Cheu and Deza. So we go to Blantyre, Lilongwe. Now I was thinking about my work. I was thinking about now what I went there for, because I went there to initiate a project. So I was thinking, are we going to implement this project? Anyway, to cut a long story short, I phoned my partners in Malawi to ask them to quickly make an assessment on what we can do to respond to the cyclone. Because now I started getting news that, there has been mudslides in Blantyre, there has been a flooding in Lower Chile. So this particular project, we have projects in Zomba, Palombe, Machinga, Chikwawa. So all these districts were affected. They are, I think, as the Deputy Director of Response has shown the map, these are the districts where it has been severely affected, including Mangochi. So that's why I organized my partners to make sure we do a rapid assessment so that as CARE we can respond by looking for funding, to respond to the emergency now. So my also other worry was, how does this driver get back to Blantyre? That was my other worry, the one who drove me to Lilongwe. And he was insisting that I have to go because my family have phoned me that my security guard has not reported for duties. So where I stay, we can't do without a security guard because it's dangerous. So I have to go. So I was thinking, did I do the right thing? Am I going to put this guy in trouble? Because then we also got news that some of the roads have been cut so that they were not passable. But since they insisted, I said, okay, here is fuel, you can go. So he went back, but I was checking on him from time to time to make sure that he's safe. Because I was thinking, what if something happens to this person? And I'll be feeling guilty throughout my life. But he managed to get to Blantyre, but the rain was still coming. It came for 4 days and it was thick and huge. We made the assessment. Now we started looking for funding to respond to the assessment because most of the communities had been, some communities had been completely washed away, others under mud because they were mudslides. This particular cyclone has impacted mostly on hills. So the mud came from the hills, the rocks were coming from the hills, and they were wiping everything that was downhill. So all the houses that were built downhill were wiped away. I don't know, but we used to call these natural disasters, but with the improvement in science, we now know that these are man-made. The frequency, the intensity, and the length of them, they are beyond the abilities for communities to cope. The mudslides, the debris, to hear that until now, some people are still missing. It means it was quite intense. Mind you, some of these communities, like my fellow deputy director for response has said, they were just recovering from the previous cyclones, the tropical Anna and tropical Gombe in 2022, and now the cyclone Freddy. Some of them had not yet moved back to where their original homes are, and here they are, they have been affected. It's difficult to recover in those states because they haven't forgotten about what happened. Some of them had lost their loved ones in the previous cyclone, and here they are now. I will not go into the details in terms of the figures. I'll just talk about the response that we are doing as a SCIA. So for SCIA, we had initially sent £15,000 to respond to immediate needs for those communities that that had lost almost everything. So we sent this amount. We have partners in Malawi. We partner mostly with the Caritas Malawi. So we sent £15,000 initially to respond to food needs, tents, blankets, as well as kitchen utensils. And then thankfully, we are so grateful to the Scottish government. We made an application and they gave us through their health funding, £200,000, which we are responding at the moment because of the decommissioning now of most of the camps. So with this amount, we are supporting those displaced to rebuild now. So we are providing construction materials to 100 families. We are also offering relief to 36,000 affected people. We are giving them maize flour, corn, soya, blend, cooking oil, domestic utensils. We are also providing post-traumatic social support to those affected families. There are some, most families have lost loved ones. They saw their loved ones actually being washed away, but they couldn't do anything. So they need psychosocial counseling. We are also providing sanitary facilities for women and girls, and also providing chlorine to, because now most people have lost their water points through the cyclone, so we are providing chlorine for them to treat their water. We also had funding from a Jersey Overseas Aid, so we are also responding in the catchment areas where we have Jersey Overseas Aid projects currently going on. We also have a climate justice fund, which we're responding to the loss and damage. On this particular one, we are also doing reconstruction as well as rehabilitating. Like I said, that we're in the process of supporting our partners and the communities that we work with to rebuild from the Cyclone Anna and Cyclone Gombe. And now in the process of doing that, Cyclone Freddy came. So we are still reconstructing and rehabilitating water points. We are also involving drama groups to make sure that we educate the people in various communities that we are working with on disaster risk reduction, on risk assessment, or on participatory scenario planning. Yes, we are also doing a research on the mechanism for measuring and assessing loss and damage. We are engaging with the Mast University in Malawi to do this so that we can learn how we can quantify economic losses and damage. in the areas that we are working in Malawi. So that's what we are doing on as here. I think I want to extend my gratefulness to the Scottish government that have been supportive to our organization. Now, as a member of the diaspora community, soon after the cyclone hit, we have a group executive under the Association of Malawians in Scotland. So we had a GoFundMe page set up. So from that one in UK, we raised £11,729. Apart from that, we have activities in the pipeline for fundraising. We have the public celebrations on the 16th of July, where we have planned events that we can do fundraising to support Malawi. We also organized clothes. We have one Malawian who does shipping business. So he generously let us send about 10 drums for free, where we contributed in terms of clothes. So we have sent those clothes to Malawi to support people. Mind you, it's Malawi is in winter now, so they need blankets, they need warm clothes. So we are still receiving those clothes to send them to Malawi. With that, I want to thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And I welcome questions.
Thank you so much, Blessing, for that. Very comprehensive. And we're now joined by one of my fellow MSPs and another co-convener. Delighted to have you, Liam MacArthur. I know you've been busy doing other things, and other people are doing the same. So we're delighted to have you here. So I think, Blessing, you've given us a very comprehensive outlook as to what you're doing here through SKIP and what you're also doing and what has happened. And I think that's very useful. There are lots of other partnerships that Scotland is involved with, and the money that you've received from government is of great advantage. But are there any other locations that Scotland are doing or helping to try and support in funding or even equipment or medical aid or whatever they can do? Is any of that happening across the moment in Scotland?
I am not sure. You mean through the diaspora organization?
Yes.
Currently, I haven't heard of any of the organizations supporting the Malawi, but they should be there. Maybe they are there, because when we meet as a Scotland Malawi partnership, we usually get organizations reporting on what they are doing in Malawi. So maybe Stuart can help to answer that one.
Well, I mean, we know from some people that are online, they've talked about what other organizations are doing, UNICEF as well, and there was a comment made from, I'll just give you this one here, which is from Eve Harwood, who's a visitor at Edinburgh University Global Health, and she's looking at what partnerships are taking place between churches and Scotland and the Malawi, including the health impact and response and toolkit that churches are setting up. And some churches have maize mills that they have offered to process maize for those who have been displaced and can receive processed maize flour themselves. So that's taking place across and being transported from Blantyre, and that may suit some Scottish agencies. So there is some work happening along on that side, and she's given us some information, which we'll also come to attack.
Yeah.
But does anyone else have a question for Blessing at this time? Good. Well, delighted, and thank you, Blessing, for your presentation. It was much appreciated. And as I say, time is moving on. And our next presentation for discussion, we're then going to move into the whole attitude of empowerment of women and girls. And I'm delighted to once again welcome back the Chief Executive, Kevin Simpson, who has joined us this evening, and from Malawi FTSE, the great, and as I say, you've been a supporter of this cross-country group, and we thank you for that continued support that you've given to us and continue to have. and we know that you've got a stairwell with you this evening from Malawi, and it would be good to just hear from both of you as to what you're doing and how things are working with the whole empowerment of women and girls in agriculture and what you're dealing with and what you're doing at the moment. So both very welcome indeed to be here this evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Blessings, for quite a moving presentation, quite hard to follow in some ways. Malawi Fruits, we don't consider ourselves a disaster response organisation, but a development organisation, particularly focused on empowerment of women and girls. We began in 2011, and it wasn't really until 2015, I would say, we really got some traction. And there was two major reasons for that. One was we got some support from the Scottish Government, and the other was we appointed Atusai Kayuni, who's here with me, as our development executive, and we've worked together over the last eight years now. So I say we're not a disaster response organisation, but in fact, Atusai, you were involved with farmers in the north and part of the response. Would you like to say something about what you were able to do?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Atusai Kayuni. I come from the northern part of Malawi, that is Mzuzu, but my home district is Karonga. When we heard about Cyclone Freddy, we were really shocked because it was too devastating. So we mobilized some finances through the platforms that we have in the north, that is women farmers and some youth. So we managed to mobilize over 4.5 million. Part of it came from here, Scotland, through Kevin Simpson and other platforms. So we're able to buy some food items as well as non-food items. So we bought some blankets, some clothes, we bought food. But when we got there, we were really shocked to see the situation on the ground. It really pained some of us. Of course, we're not directly involved in disaster preparedness and recovery, but the situation there was not good to see the camps, how people are living in the camps. Maybe in the future, our government should think about it. We need to have some shelters because education was highly disturbed there because they had to close schools, which was not good. So if maybe within our the recovery plan, if there can be some funds to build some shelters, especially in areas where they experience floods and other disasters now and again, they really need to have proper shelters with proper sanitary facilities. Imagine having over 2,000 people at a school with just toilets without a washroom, other washrooms. It's really hard for women. So we need to think about that and include in the plan. So us as Malawi Fruits, we work with women through economic empowerment. There are other agencies who work to address social impact, but for us, we do economic empowerment through modern ways of farming. We do provide solar irrigation equipment. We also do greenhouse farming, whereby 2 or 3 women are involved in producing vegetables. So we mainly focus on horticultural crop value addition, production and value addition. Currently, we are producing good quality tomatoes, and these are being produced by women in polytunnels. Of course, we call them greenhouses in Malawi, but here we call them polytunnels. These are controlled environment. It's much safer for women to work in those greenhouses, and these are not, for us, we look at them that they are big because they are 9 by 13 meters, and they take a smaller space. It can be placed adjacent to their homes. Women feel much safer to work in those greenhouses. We have some projects in Chinteche, whereby we work with 135 women. We've constructed 45 greenhouses. They are producing tomatoes, peppers, and since they are able to produce these vegetables in a controlled environment, they are able to produce throughout the year, thereby securing the markets, because for a group of women or a group of people to sell in the supermarket. They want a product that is of high quality and they should be consistent in production. So we have 45 greenhouses in Chinteche with 135 women working in the greenhouses, and we also constructed a chill store just to improve the shelf life of the produce, because farming in Malawi, especially horticultural crops, it's very difficult because of their shelf life. They don't last long, so that's why we are able to build chill stores. So we have 3 chill stores strategically placed. One is in Nerumpi, the other one is in Muzuzu, one in Chinteche, so that at least these cater for the northern region. So those who are further north, they use the one which is in Rumpi. Those who are in center of the northern region, or they use the one which is in Muzuzu. Those who are in the southern part, especially in the north but south part, they use the one which is in Chinteche. Then the other project we are doing is to work with youth, especially graduates. We have 2 groups. The other group, we only have, there are only graduates in that group, about 60 of them, all women graduates from different colleges. We're trying to pilot to understand how do they understand farming as a business. So it's our study, it's an ongoing study. So these groups are Tekwendeni. We have the graduates and the non-graduates, but all of them, they are women. So we're trying to understand how these people handle projects like non-graduates and graduates, so that we see which group we can engage with quite a lot. Then we've gone a little bit further by considering other crops, because that is growing crops in a controlled environment. But because of the high quality that we're getting, now the market is coming to us, asking us, can we also produce other crops outside the greenhouse, like other vegetables? So there we've tried to engage the missing group. We call it a missing group just because this group is not being supported either by government or by the banks. Why? Because the government mainly focuses on smallholder farmers, like providing subsidies for people to grow crops for their own consumption. And there is another group of farms which is patronized by Westerners. These are huge plantain farms. They can get grants, they can get loans from the bank just because they have collateral. But the missing part is the group of farmers which have run between 10 hectares to 100 hectares. These people struggle quite a lot to get loans from the bank, and they're not supported by the government as well. So we're trying to work with these groups, trying to co-investors buy the land, invest on the land, make it productive in a modern way by providing irrigation farming. Was in that way, at least a number of them can be engaged in crop production. So that's what we're doing in Malawi.
Fantastic, and I mean, that really shows the commitment that you put in, but also what is being achieved, and that's a real success story that shows from a concept that you had, how you developed it, how you expanded it, and how it's continuing to grow. And congratulations to you in all the endeavours that you put onto that. That really is quite an achievement. So well done. Are there any comments or questions that you'd like to ask about on any of that? Of course.
Thanks very much, and apologies again for arriving late. I was interested in the focus, obviously, on quality, but I would imagine there's also a drive to increase yield, etc. I mean, how successful you've been in being able to do that, recognising that in a sense you don't want to be doing anything that undermines kind of either that quality or the environmental impact. But actually, I suspect, given the demand that there is, That's an objective you always must have in mind and be reaching for. So I'd be interested in how much success you've had and what you would see as the next stage of that process.
Thank you very much for that good question. Yeah, achieve good quality in terms of quality and quantity. It begins with quality food, paying attention to details like how much water to apply to crops, how much fertilizer, all those things. So we've been engaged quite a lot in training these women. So we don't just put up a greenhouse, because installing a greenhouse or a polytunnel is one thing, but managing the crop inside the tunnel, that's the main thing. So us as Malawi Foods, we have extension workers. Most of these are young graduates. We mentor them so that they also help mentoring others. We also have several platforms where we train farmers. Currently, we are learning trainings with over 1,025 farmers online.
Can I just add to that, because I think you're underselling yourself, Atisai. Atisai sets a target for the women of getting 15 kilograms from every tomato plant, and they achieve that. In fact, the most we've had is 33 kilograms from one plant. The average for someone growing tomatoes in a field in Malawi is 4.5 kilograms. So it's an increase of 300% on average that the women are achieving. And as Atisai says, that's achieved through the polytunnel, but through the backup of the training, starting with good quality seed. I think an interesting environmental aspect is that they are getting 15 kilograms per plant using the same amount of fertilizer as those who get 4.5. And that to me is a very important measure, is how much food do we get per kilogram of fertilizer that's supplied. I think is something we really should be measuring. You know, I know there are conservationists I speak to regularly who would say, oh, don't use any chemical fertilizer. Personally, I think people will still be hungry if they go down that route. But if we can get a 300% increase in the yield from the same fertilizer, then that's a major benefit.
And I mean, that's really interesting and a phenomenal achievement. And as you say, in terms of the cost of fertilizer, which presumably have gone up, and you guys in the way that they've gone up sort of globally, how have you managed that? Have you had to reduce the amount of fertilizer that you're using, or did it just increase the pressure to increase yield further?
Thank you very much. So for us, we balance these two. We consider the 3 R's: the reduce, reuse, and recycle. In agriculture, our main focus is to reduce the amount of fertilizer we use, but at the same time without compromising the nutrient requirements by the plants. So we marry the two. We use a lot of organic manure, because whenever we target a plant, we grow in sacks. So at first we mix the media with manure in the ratio 1:1, thereby providing some nutrients from the manure. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And we've just another comment put on the chat, which has come from Ben Wilson, which is talking about the 8 million pledge from the Scottish Government to tackle climate impacts in Malawi through the Climate Justice Communities Project. The award for this has been anticipated for a long time and is not yet clear why the money has not yet started to flow. So I think that is something that we can follow up to find out where that is and why there seems to be a little bit of a logjam there. I think that's quite important. Well, can I say well done, congratulations for what you are achieving, and the knock-on effect is for the women who are working and supporting, and together for all the work you do in supporting this and making that happen too. So it's a real pleasure to hear, and we've got a question from a colleague at the top there. Thank you.
Hi, Atisai. Listen, I just wanted to reiterate what the chairman said there, and I wanted to thank you on behalf of APPG Youth Organisation for allowing them to be part of the programme, and the ladies on the ground are super excited to start this work with you guys, and they know how much of a difference this is going to make to their livelihoods. So thank you for giving them that opportunity. I really admire what you're doing. I guess my question to you is, what's the next crop that you're thinking of bringing out?
Thank you very much. So apart from tomatoes, we do want to include the wide range of all horticultural crops, all salad crops, because our country imports a lot of vegetables from South Africa, India, which is also having a huge impact on foreigns. So we're going to be producing all the horticultural crops in the open field through drip. So already traffic will be included if we get a certain grant. If we are successful, we would want to set up irrigation schemes that is using drip, because we want to use reduce the amount of water we use in irrigation. We're also going to include some legumes, the beans. We want to be doing bean seed multiplication, which is also on high demand. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mick, for that too. And as I say, congratulations on what you're achieving, and we look forward to hearing future developments as things go forward. Now we're going to move on to our last speaker of the evening, and we're delighted to welcome back from Mummy Martin Foods, their country director, Mrs. Mercy Sabandi. She joined us back in 2018 in person, and we very much look forward to hearing an update on the work of the fund in supporting the secondary education for girls in Malawi, and where that is progressing and how that's going forward. So, Mercy, delighted to once again welcome and look forward to what you're going to say to us and an update on where you are. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all who are here. My name, as I've already said, is Mercy Swande. I'm from Malawi, it's Zuzu, the north of Malawi. And my presentation will be very short. My work for Mummy Martin Fund involves empowering girls through their secondary education. What we do as Mummy Martin Fund is that we pay school fees for girls at secondary school. The girls that are paid school fees for under Mummy Martin are those girls who are really in very needy situation that without our school fees, they could not have continued with secondary education. So we depend upon the schools, especially who give us the girls that otherwise would drop out from school or lack of fees. But I also have a duty to make sure that the girls that have been given are really that are in lack of school fees. So we work hand in hand with the schools, but also we work with the former girls that are on the bursary to see if really the girls that have come in and girls that were maybe they were there at school paying fees, maybe had gone into a situation where finances are not allowing them now to continue their education. Sometimes it's just girls that are just coming in the first year, and then they come to say, we need a transfer because we are unable to pay school fees, so we need our girl to go to a school that is cheaper than your school. So that when that situation comes in, we come in and help out with girls. As it is now, we are having almost 148 girls that are on Mummy Martin Fund from almost 4 districts in the north. We have girls at Shitipa district at Kasere Girls Secondary School, Karonga district at Karonga Girls Secondary School, and also St. Mary's Girls Secondary School. And then we have some girls also at Pandawe Girls Secondary School in Katabe. And in Mzimba district, we have 2 schools. We have a school in Zuzu, which is not a boarding school, it's a day schooling one, but with some Mummy Martin girl called Mushenga Utua Community Day Secondary School. Finally, in Zimba, we have again CCP Secondary School, where also we are supporting some girls there to get their education through Mummy Martin Fund. We all know that all these things that have been talked about, we cannot develop Malawi if we don't have educated people in Malawi. So girls' education is a key to all that my friends have talked about. Women empowerment in agriculture, we also need educated women, at least, that can lead instructions for agriculture, that can go further with modern agriculture. We need someone who is able maybe to write or read instructions and all that. So our goal is to see a girl child go through secondary education. It doesn't matter even if she doesn't go through university, but at least having a secondary education is a start to a wide more things in the world, even in her own decisions upon family planning and other things, depends upon a girl who is at least able, that she can understand issues, and she can live through things. So really, Mami Martin Fund, as an organization, we are trying to achieve that. Although it's a big dream that we cannot, right now I can say that we are not yet there. There are a lot of many girls that need our help, but we are unable to support each and every needed girl out there in Malawi secondary schools, but we are trying our level best. So I'm here to thank all the donors that help us, Scottish government. We all know from 2018 that we had a fund through Addison Fund that was helping out girls. Phase 1 is gone, but now we're still having phase 2 girls who are finishing this year of secondary education. So that was a huge lift for us to accomplish our dream of seeing girls through secondary education. Now, I would like to talk about some of the impacts that have maybe been seen through our MMF helping girls out in Malawi. Most of our girls have gone through public universities, they are professional teachers, we have professional nurses, professional engineers, and also so many other professions that were produced through these organizations' support through girls' education in Malawi. But apart from that, I'm happy to report here that at least now we are seeing girls who have dropped out while still at secondary education because of early pregnancies coming back to school. We have almost 3 girls that are back at school, leaving their babies, small babies at home, and coming back to finish their secondary education, because we have this policy in place to say, once a Mami Martin girl, we don't want to lose her until she finishes her secondary education. So even if in that circumstances that she has gotten pregnant, we are not promoting people to get pregnant during school, yes, but even when that happens, we hold the place and keep the fees for this girl until she returns for her school, and then we start again paying until she finishes secondary education. So that alone has helped the girl child to have the mind to say, okay, this has happened, but I can move on and accomplish the goal of finishing secondary education. So with the help of Malawi government that they have put in place a campaign to say we should bring back girls to school when they are in fact, they advocate to say even if they are pregnant, they can continue until the time that they give birth, then for a short time leave school maybe and come back for schooling. But most girls are very shy to continue schooling while they're pregnant, so they opt to leave maybe for a year, have the babies, and come back when they are free to finish their education. Yes. So the other thing that I want to report is, you know, it's not only about when someone is needed, it's not only about school fees that they need, but there are some basic needs that also accompanies someone who doesn't have school fees. So at first, Mami Martin was only strictly on school fees, but as the years went by, we came across that situation to say, well, yes, we have paid the school fees, but the girl is nowhere to be seen at school. You start the inquiries and you find out that this girl is not back at school because she didn't have transport money to bring her back to school. She didn't have the basic needs that she needs for her school activities to go on well. So we have put in place a fund called Related to Learn Fund. When we have the donations from any sponsor that is donating to Mami Martin Fund, we make sure that we separate these funds for fees and also a little money for the Related to Learn Fund, so that we support those who do not have transport to carry themselves to school and then back home, but also support some girls with school materials like notebooks, lighting pens. Sometimes also we also give out our girls reusable sanitary ware. We have come in a partnership with a company in Malawi that is making those. So we order each year a pack of 4 reusable sanitary ware for each girl that we support and give them out. Then we renew that every year. So through that support, girls are very happy to come back to school because they know that they will not have that lack of basic needs like soap, usable sanitary ware, or the transport to come back to school or to go back home. So those are the things as Mami Martin that we are doing right now. And we are very happy with the progress. And we know that through this, many girls will get their education without problems and maybe empower a beautiful Malawi whereby we will have more women being in laws that will take Malawi's development on another level. Yeah. Yes, that's my presentation. If there's anything.
Mercy, thank you for that, because that is very much the future. And you are empowering these women to have a future, and through education, that's so vitally important. And you know the strides that you're already making across that are to be commended, because that is vitally important. And you've developed it and taken it to new levels and trying to other things, and that's only to the benefit. So keep us informed, because you know there is no doubt that the Scottish Government and other agencies wish to know exactly what you're trying to do, because they have the same ambitions as you have to ensure that you can empower women and you can empower girls to be educated and to progress and to have a future, which is so important. So thank you. Any quick questions from anybody before we wind up? Please do. Please do.
Mercy, that's a great presentation. I really, really love what you're doing. My question to you is, you're training 148 girls, you're taking them through secondary education, and then many of them through tertiary education, and then many of them are going on to get a job. Do you have a structured way of asking them to then commit maybe a part of their earnings back into the fund so that you can make it sustainable, and so that they can be effectively funding others of their sisters into the program? Does that make sense?
To that, maybe.
Hi, I'm Moira Dunworth and I'm with the Mamie Martin Fund here. Just a correction is that we don't actually fund tertiary education. We do, we're 30 years old this year. And one of the reasons I think that we are is because we're really focused. There is immense need, as we all know. We don't do any of that. And so we don't, the short answer is no, we don't have a structured way. However, what we do know is that when ex-pupils contact us, which with increased use of internet, they do kind of pop up through Facebook and other places, is that they tell us that they do help other girls, and they do actually say things like, and I am helping other girls the same way I was helped. And, you know, so as soon as they're in a position to do that, they do. Kind of everybody in Malawi sort of helps out their families and stuff anyway. So it's, but we need to focus on what we do.
Absolutely. And we thank you for all the work that you're doing, because we know how committed you are to this process here as well.
Oh yeah, but it's Mercy is our woman.
I know, but you do. Liam's got a question.
Yeah, I mean, again, actually, that was fantastic and very inspiring. I mean, as I was listening to you describe the sorts of relationship you could build and what you're trying to allow the individual girls to achieve, it struck me as something that perhaps dovetails quite well with the school-to-school relationships that have been built up across the country, here in Scotland with counterparts in Malawi. And I just wondered whether or not that had been explored. I remember listening to a presentation from one of the schools in the west of Scotland, who described how they changed the pairing arrangement every 4 or 5 years, because they were conscious that by simply focusing on one school, it became a bit of a magnet, and the other schools were becoming less sustainable in Malawi because they didn't have that same relationship. And I just wonder whether there might be scope through those school-to-school arrangements to raise the awareness of the fund and the work that you're doing, and maybe encourage schools to find a kind of targeted way of, I think the goodwill's there, the raising money is perhaps not an issue, but finding that connection and what you're doing will resonate, I'm sure, with not just girls, it will be the entire school community here, but it would resonate in a way that I think would attract additional support and allow you to do more.
Maybe I need this.
So Liam is asking about whether we work with partnerships, Scottish schools and Malawi schools. And there was a big thing the Scottish government funded for a while about that. And we wouldn't refuse an offer, and in fact mentioned this in Having said that, we're always really wary about the time and the resources that are involved in other things. And if we're offered partnerships, which it's lovely to say we are on a regular basis, we have to really think very hard about what's the benefit to our girls. We don't do partnerships, or we work with partners in Malawi, but in Scotland, we do as have a lot of approaches. We have to ask, what is it worth? The benefits. Mercy is our only paid member of staff. We do pay somebody else a small amount of money to run our Instagram account from Malawi, and I hope you all noticed the improvement from me doing it. There was a way to go. So we have no paid staff in Scotland.
I mean, I just wonder whether it's even a question of raising the awareness of the fund amongst the schools. I mean, through the Scotland Malawi partnership would be a logical way of doing it, but I think it might just ignite ideas amongst some of the school communities that have good relationships. That this is something that they could look to support. It wouldn't hopefully increase the workload on yourselves, but it might actually attract additional funds that you're putting to very good use.
And I think that would very much be the case, Liam, because as we already have, with a good network of organisations who are already there, that you can really tap into. I appreciate that you want to make sure the balance is right and you have the same coming back and forward, but at the same time, that may be something that we could try and expand or support, so you can get some of that feedback. Well, ladies and gentlemen, can I just say what a fantastic meeting this has been this evening, and for all those who've been joining us online and putting some things into the chat function, we'll go through some of that later and see. And to our colleagues in Westminster who've also joined us from the all-party group, we thank you for your participation and your support this evening as well. And we wish you continued success in your endeavours, the same as we are doing here. There was one thing I didn't deal with earlier, and that was the minutes, and I do apologise for that. We didn't actually deal with the minute at the beginning. There were too much to go through, so that has to be managed, and a minute has been circulated of the last meeting that took place on the 17th of January, and that draft minute is in front of us, and we would need a proposer and a seconder for that minute for Stuart to then put that through the process. Doctor, thank you to
and I'm happy to.
And thank you so much for that. Now, as we already said, that's been a very successful and progressive meeting this evening, and having our colleagues from Westminster join us was also a bonus. The next meeting is scheduled for the 20th of September, and as you know, we'll send out information during the time, and between now and then, and no doubt there'll be many other opportunities that will continue to develop amongst yourselves, your organisations, and here in the Parliament. And please stay for a little while. As you know, we have some refreshments. There's the famous Malawi gin and tonic. It's being, I think, administered outside as we speak. So if you can spend some time, please do network and have a chance to speak to one another. Liam?
I mean, I want to confound the suggestion that I rock up at the end of I don't know whether this is covered earlier on, but you and I and other colleagues will be hosting the speaker in the Parliament tomorrow. So
we wondered if they might have been here this evening. We got information that they might have joined us or made a presentation, but that was not possible. But I do know that
Did
they
you mention the Malawi gin?
No, not the gin. Didn't mention the agenda. You'll leave that for you to tomorrow to make sure that there's the equation when they arrive. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to thank you once again for all your hard work and all your participation, and to Stuart and the team that make sure that everything works seamlessly and all the technology has worked. We've had better connections with Malawi than particular parts of this building, which is quite incredible. But that's fantastic. And as I say, we look forward to the future meetings, and thank you once again for your participating, your support and your assistance. It's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My favorite story I've been was going into one of the greenhouses. I could see the